Ben Matheson says, "Hey guys, when you watch Liverpool, Manchester City, Bayern Munich, it looks like they're playing a different sport than Real Madrid. Why do you think that is, and how can Real Madrid get on the same level as those clubs?"
I think it's all down to physicality and intensity and also the pace in which they play at. I think that it's very hard for Real Madrid to play at that kind of pace with their usual starting 11, with Kroos, Casemiro, and Modric in the midfield, and then two wingers on the flanks and Benzema up front. I think that in order to match the intensity from the British teams and also from Bayern and their physicality, you would need players like Valverde and maybe even Camvinga also at the same time on the field, which means that other key players like Kroos, Modric, or Casemiro will need to be sitting on the bench. So it's definitely a balance Ancelotti will probably have to find later in the season, when maybe Real Madrid will face that kind of opponent in the Champions League. Because right now, I think because of the style of both teams, I think that Real Madrid wouldn't have much of a chance against these physical teams like Liverpool, Bayern, or Chelsea, for example.
Yeah, well, you said it too. I mean, the physicality and the pace, and Ancelotti himself has said that I can't press aggressively with Kroos and Modric at this stage of their careers, which means by default, if you're going to play those two, you can't play the way Liverpool, City, and Bayern do. So you'd have to switch your personnel, which I don't know if Ancelotti is willing to do, and if he is he willing to play that kind of style of play? So that's part of it. Another part of it is that Liverpool, Manchester City, and Bayern Munich have a certain identity ingrained in them for years, and they're playing the same way. Now, Bayern have also had different managers, unlike City and Liverpool in the past few years, but they still have a certain style of play, a certain ability to control, and they're ingrained in it. With Real Madrid, they flipped through so many coaches. They've also had different playing styles. They haven't really... Part of the reason, apart from the physicality and maybe the legs and stuff, they haven't been able to press successfully, is that they haven't been doing it consistently for a long time. So you can't really get into a habit. You can't just flip a switch and be really, really great at pressing just by trying it all of a sudden. So that's part of the other reason, is that Liverpool and City, especially, but Bayern too, it's clockwork for them. They know, it's second nature. It's like shooting a free throw. They know the mechanics. They don't have to think about it. They've been doing it for so long. They've been playing with the same nucleus of players for so long. They've had the same manager doing the same things in trainings for so long, every single day, over and over and over again. It's just, that's part of the reason why the level looks so different, with the way they play, the way they've done it for years. They've done it for years.
Yeah.
Andrew Houston says, "Hi, Keanu and Lucas. New patron here. I just signed up Friday, but I've been listening to the free feed for years, and I'm really glad to be here. Welcome, Andrew. Nice to have you in the family." He says, "I think our best midfield, if given the time to mesh, would ultimately be Kroos as the holding midfielder, flanked by Fede and Camvinga. Kroos can play positional defense and control the game from the quarterback role, while Fede and Camvinga progress the ball with their dribbling abilities while supplementing Kroos with their ball-winning abilities and superior engines. They can help create overloads on their respective wings and also cover for their fullbacks if the fullbacks push up. I am curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this."
Hey Andrew, welcome. As Ken said, welcome to the family, and I will also agree with what you said. I've been saying this for the last 2 years or so. Like, Real Madrid should probably rely on a different anchor in the midfield than Casemiro, at least for a good portion of the season against a good portion of their opponents. I think that Casemiro is not needed against a big percentage of Real Madrid's opponents throughout the season, and I think that Kroos did well enough in 2014, 2015 as the defensive midfielder, with obviously Modric and I think James and Isco working as central midfielders ahead of him. So I would also be interested in seeing Kroos playing that kind of position, like for example, like Pirlo on his Juve days, with hard workers like Pogba, Marquisio, and Arturo Vidal, doing the pressing and doing the ball progression with the dribbling and their physicality. I think that would be a better solution for Real Madrid when they face quality opposition also in the Champions League, like the teams we talked about in the previous question. I think that Kroos can do that role, and I would be interested in seeing him play that role, especially now that Modric is obviously aging and entering his decline, and also you need to rotate him more often. I think that's a good solution against most of the opposition Real Madrid have to face throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, given the personnel available right now and their ages, the fact that Modric is no longer at his peak, and Modric can still give you a lot of great minutes, but not every week, obviously. I like this midfield. Going into the start of the season, I had kind of envisioned something like a Kroos, and this was before we signed Camvinga, so maybe it was before the start of the season, but so I think Camvinga was pretty close to the transfer deadline, right? Wasn't a day of?
Yeah. A day of.
Yeah. So I remember before that I was saying, like, I would really like to see Kroos and Fede and Modric together. And I think, like, and not necessarily a lot of people wanted Fede in the holding role. I don't think he plays that role that well. But I think you can kind of shift it. Like, so what Andrew's proposing here is that Kroos is as a deep lying kind of playmaker and someone who can control the game. And so in years past, that's been problematic, when he's played that role. But it really depends on what your style of play is. I think he can play that role. So, like, Ancelotti has had versions of the past where he's had Pirlo as a deep lying playmaker and Gattuso more of the box-to-box brute ahead of him. And so the reason for that is because you have a really press-resistant playmaker playing deep like a Pirlo's, which would be the Kroos role in this case. I think you'd have to really have a lot of control to do that, to make sure that Kroos isn't backpedaling, facing attacks and stuff, because Casemiro can handle that, but Kroos really can't. But I think it could work, and also it relies on interchangeability, which means on any given sequence, you could shift Camvinga and Fede back there to help Kroos to make sure he doesn't get overwhelmed and stuff. And so I would like to see it. On some level, we're not that far away from it because of the age of Modric and also the fact that Casemiro probably won't play game in, game out. We're not that far away from a future midfield of a Kroos, Camvinga, Fede, because Kroos is still like 5 years younger or so. Is he 5 years? Did I exaggerate that? How old is Toni Kroos? Like 31?
31, I think, yeah.
Okay, so he's like just a few years younger than Modric. I guess it is like 5 years. So we're not that far away from it. I would like to see it. I would like to see it.
Yeah. The only thing I'm curious about is how Camavinga and Valverde would play together. I think their style is maybe too similar. I think that they like to do maybe the same things on the field, and maybe they don't complement each other all that well. But at least you have to try it. I think Camavinga and Fede has energy and movement both on and off the ball. I think that you need to test them in a central midfielder, and then with Kroos playing behind them, the team should at least be able to control the possession again, at least against the majority of their opponents throughout the season. I'm not talking about maybe facing Manchester City with this kind of lineup, although I also feel like Valverde and Camavinga's physicality will help in this regard. I think that maybe we're talking about different solutions about the same solution for different problems that Real Madrid will be facing throughout the season, and I feel like this midfield could work.
Yeah, I mean, you lose some of the stuff that Modric brings to the table, but we've been talking.
You can play him off the bench, no problem. 30 minutes.
That's true, but and also, like, we have to prepare for that at some point. And I've been vocal, like, you can't. There's going to be a time where he's going to be gone, and you can't replace him like for like, because he doesn't. Nothing exists like him. Like, he's just so unique in the history of football. He's elite at almost everything. And so you're not going to get that in one player, but you can piece it together. Like with Camavinga and Fed, you get a lot of dynamism off the ball. You get a lot of great movement. You get a lot of defensive help. You get press resistancy. Camavinga's a really, really good dribbler. And if you have Kroos in there, you get the passing in there as well. So I think it could work, and I'd love to see it. For sure.
Yeah, and also because Casemiro has struggled a lot this season. I mean, he's been frustrating to watch. And the other day when I read Ancelotti saying that he would vote Casemiro fourth on this Real Madrid squad, I was very surprised, because I think Casemiro maybe a player with a different reputation would have been benched already. I think he's been very, obviously he has some decent performances here and there, but I think he's been consistently poor all throughout the season. So maybe trying a different experiment and a different midfield would be helpful, because I don't think he's been all that great defensively either. So
I agree. Against Athletic last night, he had some pretty good defensive challenges, but he also had some weird. I mean, this is classic. We call it classic hero, right? Like this crazy giveaways at the top of our box was burned by Sunset, and where Sunset nearly scores, but also had some good defensive interventions. But yeah, overall, I don't think he's playing at a level where it justifies playing him week in, week out over players like Fede and Camvinga. Ahmed Taha says, hey, Kian and Lucas, a short question. Would you sign Lewandowski this summer, considering our rumored signings this summer?